welcome back to another episode of Day One. I'm your host, Chloe Cowens, and this show is where I go all the way back with leaders, creatives, and visionaries to unpack their journey. And today we have a very special guest, Olusola Calhoun, who is a former nurse practitioner who blended her decades of medical expertise with her passion for aesthetics. She is a founder and CEO of Soiree Aesthetics, a business dedicated to wellness-focused treatments and personalized care that enhances both appearance and confidence.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
So you were a nurse and now you have your own business, two different worlds. So how is that going?
Yes, it's actually going great. So I've been in the nursing field, the medical field for about 30 years. I've been a nurse practitioner for 20 years. And I have opened up my aesthetics practice over the last year, and it's been going great. It's definitely different. You know, we have at the hospital, we had structure, more protocols. Everybody had their roles and responsibilities, and now it's me and the structures and protocols that I make and the responsibilities that I make. So it's great.
So why did you want to become a nurse? Did you always dream to have your own company, or you just had a love for helping people in the beginning?
Well, I'll be honest. I've always been a little, quirky, into science, into math, into nature. I'm from Los Angeles, and back when I was growing up, and I still think they have it now, but I went to what's called USC MedCorps, and it was every Saturday for 4 years straight. I committed every Saturday from like the age of 13 to when I graduated, to learning about medicine, science, all the things that are related to that. And my plan was to be a doctor, a medical doctor.
Oh, wow.
And that got, I guess that got diverted or delayed because my mother ended up passing at the end of my 11th grade year. And I just went into a funk, a deep depression, and that kind of redirected me a little
Were you
bit.
discouraged, or were you just...
I was extremely depressed because I'm an only child from my mom, and I was depressed and I didn't care,
Wow.
and it took me graduating, going to college and messing up that first year and a half, 2 years, to where I messed up my chance to, you know, further and get financial aid and things like that. And I said, well, now I can't be a physician, but I could still be in the medical field. And I always promised my mother that I would be a doctor, so that's why I have my doctorate degree now, because I promised her as well as my father that I would attain my terminal degree in whatever it is that I chose to be in. And so that's why I have my doctorate of nursing practice.
Wow. What do you think your mom would say about you now with you having your own business and everything? Because I feel like that's still a huge thing.
No, that's super huge. That's super huge. I mean, it's just a whole different level of responsibility. And, it's nothing that I even ever imagined when she was alive. So I think that she would be super proud. I know that she would be proud of the work that she did and the work that I've done even before I started the business. So, I know she'd be very proud.
Right. So you became a nurse.
Yes.
Were you happy with that decision, with being that?
Yeah, for a long time I was. I mean, the healthcare is a beautiful, wonderful world. It's vast. It's so much technology, so much medical technology, science, and blend in, earth sciences, natural sciences, and, medical sciences together. You can imagine, like, it's just so much to learn. So for a very long time, I was very happy. But when it took a turn is when we were in the pandemic. When the pandemic hit the world,
Yeah.
It hit some of us like rock hard, like a boulder. And that's when I started, we were overworked, stressed. We were losing lives of our colleagues, losing lives of our patients. So it was horrible. It was horrible for everybody, but in different ways, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really kind of opened my eyes and said, to make me say, there has to be another way. I don't know if just being in the hospital is sustainable for me, because it opened up a new way of doing things for the health system that I was working for, and that was not always pretty and not always what I felt to be
Mm-hmm.
ethical or morally sound. And I didn't align with that, and I felt stuck for a period of time. And it's just something that came over me. Like God gave me the power and the knowledge and the
Courage.
gumption, the courage
Mm-hmm.
to just step out on faith and do something that I never thought I'd do.
Wow. So what were some of those things that you were seeing or experiencing where you felt like I need to separate myself from,
Yeah.
this industry?
Yeah. So my last two experiences working in the hospital. So I was what's called a hospital medicine nurse practitioner. And so that's like an internal medicine nurse practitioner that only works within the hospital. And so his or her responsibility is admitting patients within the ER, right? And then admitting them and then determining what their medical needs are and assigning them to the appropriate location in the hospital, as well as managing their care throughout their stay. Well, so that's what I was paid as.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my job turned into me being in the hospital in the ER for maybe 98% of the time.
Wow.
And they make a heck of a lot more than a hospital medicine nurse practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just going to say it. I was used and abused with that. And, I didn't have any sounding board. I didn't have any safe space within that system, within the hospital system. So I ended up transitioning jobs to a more so like an outpatient status, where I worked as a somewhat like a perioperative nurse practitioner. So my responsibility was to clear patients for surgery, make sure that they are medically optimized for surgery. So that meant that I had to maybe check their lab work, check their EKG, check blood work and make sure it's okay, and make sure that all of their specialists signed off on them to say that they are safe for surgery. Well, when I was in that role, I took each and every single role that I have, I take seriously. I
Mm-hmm.
put 110%. Well, because I was new to that role, I was doing exactly that. The people that continued to work there that had been there for years didn't like that I was dotting my I's, crossing my T's, and finding the errors in the ways. But the goal is always to make sure that the patient is safe,
Mm-hmm.
and you do what is just and what is sound for the patients. And that's
Right.
like a medical oath that
Yeah.
we all take. That was not the case.
Wow.
So needless to say, that wasn't a fit either. And I ended up being sabotaged, harassed, sexually harassed, emotionally harassed, um, all types of abuse that you would see
Yeah.
within corporate.
Yeah.
Anything you can experience abusive in corporate, I experienced it within those last two jobs. And what that looked like is me having to find a job. Even after I had reported it to human resources, everything was unfounded. It was very disappointing when I had proof. I
Wow.
had proof, and my sole responsibility was to keep my patients safe, and I did that, and I was happy. So it didn't matter to me that I had to leave that job. I said, that's not my assignment. That's not my assignment. I'm
Right.
here to keep patients safe.
Wow. So how often does stuff like that happen in a nurse? Because during COVID, yes, we hear about the lives that were lost, but I rarely heard about the people that were helping, the nurses that were people were what's the word? You guys were very dependent upon, but like it really wasn't, talked about. You guys weren't talked about a lot.
Yeah.
So what were those conversations like amongst other nurses? And what was that doing to everybody emotionally?
Oh man. So during that time there was lives lost, of course from COVID actually, from long COVID, from the recovery of COVID, and from the mental anguish that COVID caused. And that was lives of the nursing staff, and of the physicians. There was doctors and nurses that were committing suicide.
Wow.
Because it was so burdensome. And at a point, you really didn't see a way out.
Yeah.
It was no way out. I remember just thinking like, this can't be my life. When it all unfolded, when COVID first became a thing, I just was like, Lord, protect me,
Right.
because we were going in with like hazmat suits to the ER and, like in big giant suits. And because I was lowest on the tier, because I worked with several physicians and I was the only nurse practitioner for my department. And of course they couldn't hire anybody else at that time because everybody's afraid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I was stuck in the thick of it. And because I was the lowest on the totem pole, I was forced to be that frontliner with each and every single patient for years.
Wow.
Yes. So the type of discussions that were had then, I mean, if you complained too much, you would lose your job,
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a matter of, feeding yourself and your family or, losing your job. So you were forced to kind of do those things,
Wow.
And, and I understand in the health system, it probably was only so much that they could do because the health system is so vast, but it became a point to where it was inhumane.
Did you anticipate from the beginning of COVID, did you anticipate that it was going to become like this? Or did you not think of it?
No, I don't think anybody could fathom, how bad it became.
Wow.
Yeah, nobody could fathom it. I mean, and it was a pandemic like all over the world.
Yeah.
Nobody could fathom the extent of
Nobody
that.
was expecting that at all. Like the whole world.
The entire world. It was like Armageddon.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
So how has this experience shaped your perspective on human life? Like how did it affect?
It makes me take every day and every opportunity seriously. I don't take things for granted like I used to, because I used to, and it also taught me that no amount of money is worth my sanity, my safety, my health, and my well-being. That's really what it taught me, because it was just some dark times. It was dark times. And so I will say that God gave me the ability and the flexibility and the sound mind to prepare myself for that out, even when I didn't even know it, because fortunately I was smart enough to save my money, to invest in stocks, and pack my savings accounts and my bank accounts so that when it was time for me to leave, I could leave.
So what was that moment where you were like, okay, it's time to go?
Yeah. So went through COVID, survived COVID, got COVID a couple times, but was well enough to fight it, of course. And kind of went through that last job, that perioperative surgical role. And I was finishing up a MBA program, and my kids were here. They lived here in Houston. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia at that time. And I said, once I finish this MBA program, I'm going to be with my children. They're both adults, but I want to be close to them. There's no need for me to not be close to them, especially going through what I just went through, getting out of COVID and then going into another crazy situation. So I wanted to have all the time that I could with my family. And so that pushed me to move here after I finished my MBA at Georgia State.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what type of support did you have when you started Up Soiree?
So, gosh, amazing support. Like I couldn't even have done this without the support of my husband and kids. I have an amazing husband. He is a wonderful man, and I'm so thankful because the funny thing is that we remarried. We were married before for 17 years, and we divorced, and we spent some time apart.
Wow.
And then we remarried.
Wow, that is so
Yeah,
beautiful.
when I returned to Houston. And so it's because of his support and my daughter's support that I was able to do it. They kind of pushed me and said, "Hey, it's all going to be okay. We got you."
What did that mean to you?
That meant everything. That meant everything, because a lot of times as mothers and as wives, we do all the sacrificing.
Right.
And it feels like it is unnoted and unseen or underappreciated. But them being a proponent of this time in my life and encouraging me to tap into my greater self and open my business and be an expert at it, and supporting that, whether it's emotionally, financially, or logistically in any type of way, that means everything. And that really means that's like a form of reciprocity, because I did it for them when they were young or when we were younger.
Yeah.
And now,
Yeah.
almost 20 years later, look at them doing it for me.
Wow.
It means so much to me.
It's
It
like
means
you're
the
reaping
world.
what you sow.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
Reaping what I sowed.
So when you were starting Up Story, were there any doubts where you were like, actually, I do want to go back to nursing? Or when you started, you was head on strong, like, this is what I'm going to do, and I feel confident, comfortable?
Yeah. So, no. I never thought that I would want to go back into the hospital.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, you were like,
So
no,
that
I'm
was
done.
yes. I'm done with the hospital. I'm done with that life. Of course, starting up a brand new business in a brand new city, and in a in a different aesthetic field. The field of aesthetics is different than just traditional medicine,
Right.
So doing something different and going through the certifications and things like that. I think my greatest doubt is whether I was going to get the clients, build the clientele that I needed for the business to be sustainable. And so, yeah, I will admit in the beginning, I had doubt. Maybe out of 1 month, I doubted about a week.
That's good.
About a week. And then 3 months in, 3-4 months in, it would be maybe about 3-4 days out of the month, I would have a doubt. And then, 8 months in, maybe 1 day a month. So now it's like full throttle.
Confident.
Totally confident, super confident. I'm like, what's next? How can I level up? How can I be better? How can I, get the word out, get my name out, and tell people about what I have to offer them.
And what do you have to offer to people?
Yeah. So, you know what? I have my clinical expertise. I have my years of experience. I have my one-on-one knowledge of having melanated skin and how to care for it. I'm proud to say I am a middle-aged woman, and I take great care of my skin and my health. And my job is to show women and men that they could do the same thing, and teach them how to do it. You know, there is a lack of knowledge for our melanated community about what aesthetics is and what anti-aging treatments that are out there that can be offered for melanated skin. So I think my job is to get the word out, be a good representation of what can be done to enhance themselves as they age, because it's not about changing yourself. It's about, leveling up or becoming the best version of yourself. So
Right.
what we focus on at Soiree Aesthetics is wellness as a whole. So I offer IV hydration, I offer vitamin injections, I do GLPs, which are the weight loss medications, I do the peptides, and then for anti-aging and skincare rejuvenation, most specifically for melanated women, I offer the treatments that are focused on our skin, because we have tendency to hyperpigment. We have tendency to have dry skin. And we have tendency that maybe our Caucasian counterparts may not have.
Right.
They have more wrinkles and we have more skin laxity. So I focus on treatments that can help women that look like me, as well as everybody, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because everybody can get touched up and improve, as they continue to age. So I think my moniker at Soiree Aesthetics is I want everybody to know that even though they are aging, they can still be the best version of themselves,
Right.
And I truly, truly believe in ageless beauty. You could be beautiful at any age.
What does that mean to you, ageless beauty? Do you feel like that's something that's on the outer, or is something internal as well?
I think it starts internal. I really strongly believe that it starts with your heart, and who you are, and that eventually emanates,
Right.
that does emanate. But what I offer and what I can do is just like a cherry on top, it's just I'm taking care of the outer coating while you take care of the inside. I can offer things that could be a supplement to the inside, like
Right.
the vitamins and supplements and things
Yeah.
like that. But the client has to be the one to take the first step, and I will help them the rest of the way.
What impact have you had on your clients? Like, what has been some of the feedback?
Oh my goodness, I've had so many women come to me on how great they feel, how confident they feel, sexy. They have not loved their skin like this in a long time. They are starting to see their figure again. I can't wait to tell my friends and family about this. My complexion is glowing.
Wow.
I hear that all the time. And for the men, I do men get facials, microneedle and things like that. So I have a couple guys that do that. But I have some guys that really enjoy getting the hair rejuvenation, and they love it because they could see their hairline filling in,
Yeah.
and their beard filling in. So I mean, everybody really, really enjoys the environment, the relaxation, and just being able to really focus on themselves for whatever period of time that they are with me,
Wow.
in my chair.
So what's next for Soiree Aesthetics? You guys expand to different other areas, or
Yeah,
what are
I
you
think
thinking?
what's next, what is my dream is to continue to build my clientele, continue to tell Houston and the surrounding areas of Houston about who I am, what I do, and what I can offer. And eventually to get another location. I'm gonna say I'm gonna think bold and
Yes.
broad,
Because that's what got you here.
Yes.
Speaking bold and
Yes.
choosing yourself.
Yes. So I'm going to say another location,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe eventually something out of state. You know what I mean? In North Carolina or something.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in
So
Charlotte area.
what would be your advice for people who are in an industry where they're unhappy and they have dreams, but they're scared, they're fearful to take that leap?
Yeah, my advice would be to do it, but you have to have a plan. Yeah, you have to have a plan. I think even while you're working your 9 to 5 or your corporate job, because things are so uncertain and unsure, you always have to have a plan B, and then plan for your next move. And what that really, really looks like is actually conceptualizing it, writing it down on paper,
Right.
and then stacking your money, not blowing your money on nonsense. That's a real thing. I feel that sometimes in our community, especially when we're younger, I can speak for myself, but sometimes we kind of get caught up on the unnecessary things, labels, locations, this, that, travel,
Trying to impress,
right? Trying to keep up with the Jones and things like that. I think you really need to be thinking about your future, because we have to learn how to take care of us.
Yeah, and you never know what the future holds.
We do not know what the future holds. We don't. So it's so important to not be so willy-nilly and really sit down and plan ahead. Have a plan. Have a 1-year plan. Have a 5-year plan. And have dreams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have dreams so that you have something to aspire to. And I think also extremely important is surrounding yourself by the type of people that you want to be. Making sure that you are not the smartest person in the bunch. Making sure that you are figuring out ways to educate yourself on various things, and really work to be cultured, because there's so much outside of Houston. There's so much outside of the U.S., learn your history, learn your family history, so nobody could just feed you BS.
Right.
But more than anything, prepare for your future financially, emotionally. Think of your family. Think of what legacy that you are trying to leave.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was great advice. And thank you for coming on. You have a very great story, inspirational.
Thank you.
Let them know where they can find you and where they can check out Story Aesthetics.
All right. So you can find me on Instagram at Soiree Aesthetics, and that's spelled SOIREEAESTHETICS.
Yes.
Okay. And the website is also Soiree Aesthetics. TikTok, Soiree Aesthetics. All of the handles will be Soiree Aesthetics.
Yes, guys. Make sure you check them out. You guys can also follow me at ChloeCalhoun_. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And I will see you guys on the next episode of Day 1.